Go ahead, Maria.
Okay, so I think that we can go ahead and begin. So hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar inside the Culmore Clinic Volunteer Experience with our special guest speaker, Uloma Kelechi Nwaolu. Thank you again everyone for taking the time to join us in this event. This webinar is our first of our special webinar series that are part of the Culmore Clinic's networking and professional development events. So my name is Maria Paula Bautista, and along with Jasmine Williams and Blaine Johannes, we are part of the Culmore Clinic Young Professional Committee and the moderators of today's webinar. So before we go ahead, we want to extend a kind invitation to turn on the videos for everyone, if possible, to make an interactive conversation through the webinar. So moving forward, Blaine, can you please? Yeah. Okay, as an icebreaker, we would love to hear or read your comments in the chat about how do you think, how can volunteer improve quality of life? So feel free to write down your comments in the chat. Gives a sense of purpose, yes. That's a good one. Great, provides a sense of community. That's what Uloma says. Blaine, community service to all. That's perfect. Well, I want to share with you that according, does anyone has any idea or any thought about this?
So I can speak to it super briefly. I feel with volunteering, everyone has their own knowledge, their own experiences, resources that they can bring to the table. And the more minds, the more resources, the more compassion and sympathy that is put towards a dilemma, a problem, the faster and more efficiently we can all get to a solution. So volunteering can help those who need help. And then also volunteering can improve the quality of life of the volunteer, giving them, like Jasmine said, a sense of purpose more than anything.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Luma. Yeah, that's a really great explanation. So I wanted to share with you all that according to the Harvard Women's Health Watch, volunteering might be good for our body and for our mind because it provides health benefits such as decreases the risk of depression. Also, it gives a sense of purpose and teaches you valuable skills. As well, it helps people to stay physically and mentally active by reducing the stress levels. Also, it helps to live longer, and it also helps to meet others and develop new relationships. So all these positive effects of volunteering on physical and mental health is due to the personal sense of accomplishment that individuals gain from their volunteer activities. So with that, I'll get out of the way, and I'm pleased to present Jasmine, who is going to give you an introduction of the clinic, the Young Professional Committee, and our great guest speaker. So go ahead, Jasmine.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks to everyone for joining. As Maria said, we would like to welcome you guys to our first Young Professionals Committee webinar. My name is Jasmine. I am the chair of the Young Professionals Committee. And I just wanted to take a couple minutes to give you a little bit of background about Comore Clinic and about the Young Professionals Committee itself. What is Comore Clinic? So the clinic was named one of the best nonprofits by Catalog for Philanthropy, and it's a healthcare clinic that serves low-income adults within the Bailey's Crossroads area. It was founded in 2007 by a couple of volunteers, and today it is still mostly supported by a group of interfaith interfaith volunteers that provide a range of healthcare services. Just a little quick note, we learned about Culmore Clinic in one of our graduate classes, and it was a project we had to do. And after we learned about the clinic, we were really intrigued. The mission and vision really resonated with us. So we decided to further our work with the clinic and do an internship and be a part of the Young Professionals Committee. Next slide, please. So the Young Professionals Committee works with the board of directors to promote Comore Clinic's mission among students, recent graduates, and those early in their careers. The committee serves as a think tank for new and emerging trends in medicine, community health, communication, social media, and technology. We are looking to appeal to 18 to 30-year-olds within the DMV area. We are recruiting and looking for new volunteers to come and join. So if you are interested, we do have information at the end about where you can email to get more information or to join if you are interested. Next slide, please. So to help us highlight the volunteer experience at Comore Clinic, we have a guest speaker. Her name is Uloma Kelechi Nwaolu, and we would like to give a warm welcome to her. I'm going to give you a brief background on her. She received her bachelor's degree from Brown University in biology and her master's degree from Georgetown University in Physiology and Biophysics. She is also a medical assistant, a pre-medical student, and a researcher. She has been a volunteer with Comor.
Jasmine, muted.
Sorry. She has been a volunteer with Culmore Clinic for about 8 months, some of that time which was affected by the pandemic. Nonetheless, she is here to share her experiences as a Culmore Clinic volunteer, and we would like to welcome her.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Jasmine. I'm really excited to be here and to just give a little bit of my experience volunteering for this clinic and even my professional experiences outside of my clinic work and volunteering work as well. So I'm really excited about it.
Thank you, Uloma. I'm glad to have you here. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. We're going to start off with asking you a few questions, and if anyone has any questions for Uloma, feel free to jump in. We want to make this interactive and conversational as best as we can. So the first question, a little bit about you, Uloma. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you have done professionally and a couple of fun facts.
Alrighty, so like it's been said, my name is Uloma. I'm like all the above, I guess, a student, a future student, medical assistant, a researcher, a volunteer. I guess some things that I like to do outside of those things, read, exercise. I was also an athlete as well for a while. I wore different hats for a long time. I'll skip to the little fun facts, less fun facts, more. And I'm not sure if you're like, Blaine, if you mentioned it, if it was fun facts or. Yeah. So I felt like, and I was talking to Blaine about this, even the other young women, about, fun facts. Everyone does that a lot. And I thought something fun would be to do like my biggest fears, because, how fun is that? So I'll just talk about two of them. The first one is, it's kind of like unusual. I think most people would have this fear if they really thought about it. But I have this fear of like environments with no end in sight. So like huge bodies of water where you can't really see the land or you can't see the ocean floor. Not a huge fan. Dark spaces where you can't really see or feel the walls. It kind of just feels like you're like hanging out in a dark space. not a big fan of that either. Another one, which is hilarious to a lot of people when I talk to them about it, because I am pre-med and I volunteered, and I don't feel like I've lived in the hospital for like a while. I was afraid of hospitals for a long time. Oh, wow. I was, for not until recently did I get over my fear of hospitals. I just didn't like them. I didn't like what happened in hospitals. I didn't like that people had to go to hospitals. This probably stemmed from some kind of trauma when I was little, but I can't remember it. But yeah, for up until I want to say like high school, I didn't like hospitals. I would volunteer in hospitals. I would, obviously go to hospitals and visit family, but I would just hide my fear. Like I couldn't like bear to be in a hospital. But it's gotten better. So that's definitely a fear that I've overcome. So that's really nice, especially since I'll be in the hospital for a good majority of my life as a future, physician. So it's better to get over that hump while I can. So that's just a little bit about my fears and like me personally. Professionally, like I said before, I'm an academic. I've been in school for most of my life. I got a master's primarily because of the research program associated with it. My interests stem from, humanities all the way to STEM, primarily STEM, so science and biology, specifically chemistry if I'm forced to, and then humanities as well. I'm interested in the interdisciplinary research between the two. I think that you can gain a lot out of research if you combine different fields of study. So biology, anatomy, physiology primarily, and then on the humanities side, education. I love education, and even kind of in the middle is nutrition. I'm very interested in nutrition. Mm-hmm. And then I've been in the healthcare field either as a volunteer or as a worker for like a while now. Recently, I started as a medical assistant in a podiatry office, which has been an amazing experience where I get to work with physicians, like, one-on-one. I get to have one-on-one interaction with the patients as well. I even get to help with procedures or do procedures on my own, which is really exciting. If you have any questions about that, we could talk about that a little bit more later. But that's just a little bit about me.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. It's very interesting to hear that you have a fear of hospitals, but yet you're going to go into that field. So you're challenging your fear. I like that. And the second question for you is, how did you initially learn about Culmore Clinic?
So I learned about this clinic the same way I learned about other clinics. I ask around, I do Google searches. There's always some kind of pamphlet laying around, but I've known about this clinic for some time now. I knew about it, I want to say 2 years before I even started volunteering there. I am ashamed to say I did have some biases when I choose the places that I volunteer in. I think for me, when I choose to go somewhere to volunteer, I spend most of my time places where there's programs for underrepresented, disparaged communities, in areas that are, predominantly ill-equipped and underfunded to handle these, issues or to handle the issues within these communities. Mm-hmm. And as someone who's lived around the DMV area, moved around the DMV area a lot, I think I was ill-informed and I had some biases about where these needs were. Mm-hmm. And I focused my attention on where I thought these needs were instead of understanding that these needs are everywhere. Right. So I believe that the demand was higher in other places. And I felt like because this was in Northern Virginia, that this clinic potentially have more help, more resources than other places, like places that I typically would volunteer in, which would be Southeast, Southwest DC, mm-hmm. or East Maryland, places like that. Ultimately, all the stars aligned. And, I finally, took the plunge and came to volunteer at the clinic. I started in an administrative capacity, but I'm so happy I did. And again, as I'm learning and I'm hoping that other people can also learn from my experiences or my mistakes or my biases, help is needed everywhere. There may be misconceptions about, the resources that a community may or may not have, depending on who lives in that community or who doesn't live in that community. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy that I did come, and I've heard amazing things about the clinic. I've heard some of my friends actually have, I come from a community, like a very diverse community. I have a community of like an African community, like a other minority community of individuals who like come from a community of individuals who come from another community of individuals who are underrepresented, you know, who are low income, things like that,
Right.
who told me that their relatives have gone to this clinic or they know someone who's gone to this clinic. And I've also heard through about the clinic through my resources at hospitals and other programs. So I was just happy that I got a chance to start and help the clinic do the amazing work that it's been doing. So.
Mm-hmm. And I'm very glad to hear that because, you know, as Jasmine stated earlier, we fell in love with the Culmore Clinic, and this is why we're continuing to pursue YPC, and glad to have you here. The next question will be, can you describe your volunteer involvement and, you know, how you in the future can create an engaging experience for the patients, but also how is this experience beneficial for future volunteers?
It's a loaded questions, a lot there. I think I'll tackle the part about volunteer involvement and like the benefits for the future volunteers. I think I can tackle that one without rambling too much. I think a lot of us understand like how impactful this could be for the patients, but a lot of the times we don't talk about how impactful this can be for the volunteers. I mean, as you said, Maria, in the beginning, how, you know, impactful this can be for volunteers. I mean, your explanation was great. It can be super impactful. I mean, as far as, you know, fulfillment, getting either the fulfillment from doing the work, getting the fulfillment from seeing how it benefits others, either way you look at it. From my understanding, people want to help, but a lot of times they don't know how to help. And I feel like working in clinics, it gives you a broad spectrum of what is or isn't possible when it comes to helping those and understanding your limitations and where you can grow as an individual and as a volunteer. In a clinic, especially like this one, there's something everyone can do. And then in doing what you are doing for this clinic, you realize like, you know, I can do this outside of the clinic. I can bring people just like myself who don't really know what to do to the clinic. And now they can feel like they can do something. I don't know how many times I've been walking or been driving and I see, you know, either like, you know, a homeless individual, or I even go to the hospital and I see patients who can't afford care. And a lot of times I'm like, in the past, I'm like, I don't know what to do, but I feel really, really bad. You know, I don't know what to do. And I feel like working in any clinic, even in this clinic, they make a space for you where you feel like, you know, you're necessary, you're needed in the process. You finally feel like you have something you can do, and then you can share that with other individuals. You can learn, you know, how to, you know, you can learn in that space, and then they, you know, extend out to people, you know, invite them into those spaces. And I believe that shared resources are extremely important. You know, not only is the knowledge and the mindset and the compassion you're bringing to the clinic important within the clinic, it's also important outside of the clinic. And I feel that when volunteers do come into these spaces, do learn these things, that they're more likely to share their experiences. And then before you know it, more people want to volunteer, more people want to hear about the great work that a lot of clinics are doing. And it kind of goes around full circle. So it makes you feel great about yourself. It makes you feel like you're doing everything that you can do within your power. It's giving you power in that as well. There's a little bit of power in that, knowing your limitations, knowing where you can help, knowing that you did what you could do, you know, things like that. There's always more work to be done. Excuse me. There's always more work to be done, but I think that in itself, I think it makes the experience like worthwhile, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. And I will say I agree with you completely. From the volunteer experiences that I have had in the past, it's one, knowing that I can help someone with minimal. I don't have much, but I'm able to help. And it's a fulfillment feeling for both ends, I think, to know that someone is there to help you in any way they can. And the next question I have is, what are some ways people from the healthcare industry can make a difference in their communities?
So I think there's like a pattern here. I think for me, like a lot of my answers kind of stem from like sharing knowledge, sharing resources, and like giving time. I think that like, as far as healthcare providers, they should just continue to do what they've been doing. I mean, they're amazing. Providing care, providing their services, providing their expertise. There's always room for growth, of course, because, you know, healthcare looks different in different communities.
Right.
You're not going to see the same healthcare in a hospital as you would see in a clinic,
Right.
especially an interfaith clinic.
Right.
That's, you know, I think the number was 97% immigration, like an immigrant population. The healthcare isn't going to look the same. So while, you know, everyone has been doing a great job, I think there's always room for growth and change and how, you know, care is given to different groups, understanding and acknowledging that we're giving care to different individuals, different communities that are different from each other,
Right.
that have different needs, that have different responsibilities outside of their health. Understanding this and then providing care that's specific to those communities. I think that can go a really long way. And this is going to take time. I mean, people have been doing this for like decades, you know, trying to find a way to provide care to different communities, taking in the knowledge that they've learned, whether it's through medical school, whether it's through their experiences in the clinics or through school themselves, whatever kind of schooling they did, you know, finding a way to take that information, to take your experiences as, you know, a volunteer, a healthcare worker, just a regular person, or your personal experiences, and finding a way to provide help or care to individuals who may be different from you. I think that starting there would be, not even starting there, but finding a way to have a conversation around that, or finding a way to, you know, share those resources, share that time, provide that care to those different communities, and making those communities feel like they're heard, making them feel like they can open up, you know, come back for care, things like that. I think that if we can do that as, you know, healthcare leaders, volunteers, I think it can go a very long way.
Right. And I, you know, as I'm listening to you speak, I'm hearing constant themes of personalized, you know, patient care, but then also, you know, if you're vulnerable and transparent with a community member, they will be transparent and vulnerable to you. So I think that really goes to show, you know, how much Culmore Clinic is doing this, but also your efforts working with Culmore Clinic. So now I will pass it over for a mini discussion to Jasmine and Maria. If anyone has any questions, I know it's just us, or any input that they like to share, please feel free to do so. I know we have Leah here. I know I'm putting you on the spotlight. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Could I ask a question now?
Sure.
Or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So my first general question, during this meeting, if I have any future questions, should I put them in the chat? Or should I like raise my hand? Or...
You can do whatever you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable with it in the chat, we can address it that way. Or if you want to just jump in, feel free to jump in.
Okay. I guess my general question currently is what, I'm assuming that there are a variety of responsibilities and tasks that volunteers can take on if they were to volunteer with the Comore Clinic. So I guess to you, Uloma, what in particular do you do as a volunteer? And then I guess just a general question is, what opportunities are there for people to do if they would like to volunteer with this clinic?
So I am,
what is necessary and stuff.
It's a great question, and like I've said, there's so many things that you can do, which is great. And it's not always the case in every clinic. I started off in like an administrative kind of capacity. I did a little bit here and there. I provided support right before the pandemic hit us, but that was about, I want to say, 2 months in. So I really didn't get my hands dirty. And then when, you know, everything kind of started calming down and I came back from my sabbatical, I wanted to help where I could. So there was a lot, as the healthcare, you know, switched to telemedicine, there was a need to, you know, put patient information into EMRs. So I was just happy to be helpful wherever I could be helpful. So I did that for quite a while. And then I wanted to, after a while, I felt like, okay, I think I'm starting to understand the clinic. They're starting to kind of transition into a, you know, telemedicine kind of system of healthcare, which I think is great. And in doing that, I wanted to kind of bring my own personal experiences and my knowledge and background into the, I guess, the equation where I could. And that, for me personally, that looks like maybe introducing ways in which to incorporate talks about nutrition into health in the future. But mostly now it's kind of like looking at the question of how can we, and I, was talking to Annalise about this, and, the big question, the clinic, what is the clinic doing for the patients? How can we show what the clinic is doing for the patients? How can we quantify it for, for people who are interested in participating in the clinic, funding the clinic, things like that. So that's kind of like a bigger project that I'm kind of, tapping into with the young professionals, finding a way to kind of quantify, qualify, the impact that the clinic has had in the community right now. As far as what you can do, I mean, it's endless. I think more than anything, it's important to fill needs. There's always going to be time to do more. But I think that more than anything, it's important to kind of like gauge the needs of the clinic and then fill in the roles where you can. If you speak a different language, I mean, I think that's like at the top of the list as a translator. I think with the clinic, if you could speak a certain language, that is super at the top of the list. If you have experience as like a nurse or like I don't know if they're needing like, like any kind of practitioner, if you can like take on that role and do telemedicine appointments, any kind of way to make telemedicine appointments easier, more efficient for the clinic. I think more than anything, and I think Annalise could speak to this more than I can, if you can find like a role in any of that, I think that would be extremely helpful for the clinic.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure, Leah, if you know Annalise. We didn't introduce her, but Annalise is the director of Culmore Clinic, and she has joined us today. So she's here, and she may jump in and answer a question or two, but she is here, representing for the clinic and supporting us. And to Uloma's point as well, if you want to join, the Young Professionals Committee as well, that is an option to help and give back to the to Comore Clinic as well. Maria and I are just gonna have we're just gonna hopefully engage in some conversation. I just took some notes based on what Uloma said. Mm-hmm. I wanted to comment on the bias part of that she spoke about, the bias that you have about things that you don't even realize that you have. I know I'm from Georgia, and I moved to this area, and it's like deemed very prestigious and like, as if there's not communities that have need. And so when she said that, I thought about, how I kind of had that thought process too when I moved here. I mean, obviously, that there's always communities that are underserved and that need help, but you don't kind of realize the big impact when you have a stigma where it's like, oh, the area is so prestigious and it's so nice, and everyone here or X percentage have a bachelor's degree and X percentage have a master's degree. You don't realize the need. So I was thinking about that when she was speaking, and I thought that was very interesting, and how we have unconscious biases that we don't even really think about a lot of the times. So that was my piece that I wanted to say and speak on.
Yeah, thank you, Jasmine. So in my case, I just want to share with you, Leah, that I think that it's very important to do volunteering right now. I'm in my last semester of the Master in Healthcare Management. So I'm from Colombia, and I speak Spanish as well. So I thought that it's been really great to help the clinic. Right now I'm working a project, and I was able to interview so many patients that speak Spanish in order to get some ideas to develop the project that I'm working on for the clinic. So when I hear all the comments and all the opinions from the patient, it was really delightful to see how I'm like working for a clinic that is really supporting the community. They are really grateful for all the work that they are doing. So that motivate me and motivate my team to work for and be part of this clinic and support the clinic as much as we can. So if you have any other question, or also we will add Blaine's Gmail at the end of this webinar. So if you want to write any other questions or anything else.
Thank you.
So Jasmine, if you want, we can then go to the next slide.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So Leah and everyone, feel free to check out our clinic website. Also, please follow us. We have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube accounts, so where you can learn more about our mission. And we look forward to hear from you, Leah. Also, in the interest of time, we're going ahead and wrap up our webinar here. Jasmine, can you go to the next one, please? Thank you. So, but before, a big thank you to Culmore Clinic for this opportunity. We are so proud to advocate on behalf of the clinic as the Young Professional Committee. Also, we would like to thank Uloma for leading such an informative webinar and for sharing all her great experiences. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Leah, for joining and engaging during this webinar. Please stay tuned. We will send you an email soon in regards to our next webinar, which will be held the next month. Also, feel free to email us if you have any other additional question. And remember that the volunteers at Culmore Clinic, they come from different backgrounds, but they all share the same and a common desire, which is to help others.
Absolutely.
So thank
you so much. Oh, this was wonderful.
Thank
you. This is
everyone.
awesome. And just to piggyback off of Maria, yeah, we are honored. I want to say I'm honored to be the first Young Professionals Committee chair. It has been interesting to navigate and fun to learn and to grow professionally. And so, yeah, like Maria said, we will definitely send out information about our next webinar, which will be in April.
And on that note, I actually wanted to just add like my contact information, because I don't know if it'll, I see you have Blaine's, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to like also like just have like a side conversation after the webinar, just whenever you're free, just to talk a little bit more about like experiences like within and outside of the clinic, and as a young professional, like personally,